All right. Sorry. Hey, guys. Hey, guys. We're back. We're back. Sorry. Let me fix
All
my
right.
audio.
Sorry. Hey, guys. Hey, guys. We're back. We're back.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Let me fix the
Okay.
audio.
Sorry.
Audio test. Audio test. All right. I think I got it fixed now. Sorry, guys. Let me know if you guys can hear me. I apologize for the audio issues. Thank God I was looking at the chat. I'm just testing audio now. All right. Audio is good now. Thank God we didn't go too long. Sorry for the tech issues at the beginning there. But welcome to the special Friday show. Thank you for the super chat, Donnie. I'm alone. I have no producer. We are working on that. I actually have someone we are talking to that's going to help us out with production. But I appreciate you guys sticking through with the tech issue at the very beginning there. Luckily, we don't have Lee Camp with us yet. Lee Camp is scheduled to arrive. We're gonna do his segment at 2 p.m. Eastern time, depending on what time zone you are in. What I was bringing up earlier. Damn, I'm sorry for tech issues, guys. It kind of threw me off. But I was talking about RT and the band that RT, like the amount of voices that are being silenced right now. And I wanted to talk to Lee Camp for a while. Now, this is like the best timing because Revolutionary Blackout, we stand in solidarity with Lee Camp and all our friends, all the people who support us at this channel that have been censored at RT. And the crackdown against the press, the anti-establishment voices that challenge imperialism, talking about as Lenin defines it, challenging the capitalist imperial core. There's no one that did it better than RT. Like Redacted tonight, we're gonna talk to Lee Camp. I'm gonna talk to Lee Camp here soon. He's gonna join us in about 30 minutes. And man, it's a tragedy. Losing Redacted tonight, that was a great show. RT did amazing, real adversarial journalism against the United States. And people always want to say, "Oh my God, Russia! You actually want to endorse Russia today? You actually watch RT?" Yes, because I want true news that counters the propaganda we get in the United States. We are the most propagandized country. Now, if you want news on Russia, why we even want news on Russia anyway? But anyway, if you want news on Russia, maybe you shouldn't go to RT. Maybe not go to RT, right? But I know a lot of people that work at RT, like Caleb. We about had Lee Camp on. Like everyone who works at RT, they always say they have more journalistic freedom there than when they work at established so-called free Western press, which is not free. We actually work under state network as well. Jesse Ventura, you know how crazy that is? Jesse Ventura, they censored him, and he actually speak out against Putin in his wars all the time. Like he platformed by RT, he spoke out against Putin invasion of Crimea. He spoke out against this invasion. So Jesse Ventura is silenced. And doesn't that debunk their talking points that RT even platformed someone like Jesse Ventura, who's been hostile to Russian imperial talking points as well? There's an article. Once again, I want to go live a little bit before Lee Camp get on because I want to discuss these concepts with you guys. Yeah, you can still watch RT News on YouTube. It's like banned in Europe, right? And RT America is shut down. Like they're done. They're done. Redacted Tonight is canceled. So it's not the same. It's not the same. They were stripped of so much power. They're under sanctions. It's not the same. Yeah, yeah, I do want to be clear. I stand with anyone who's censored. I know I said I stand with my friends who were censored, but I do stand with anyone who's censored. I just want to emphasize that it definitely hits us hard here. And someone like me, I told you guys I consume a lot of different media sources. That's how I'm able to do my work as a citizen journalist. That's how I'm able to weed through the bullshit, getting both sides. Now with the crackdown of freedom and flow information by the capitalist class, that's going to be limited significantly. We already got people who walk around like propaganda puppets. And now we see people being exposed. The hypocrisy of liberal culture is exposed because at least Russia and China is honest. They said we want to control the flow of information because we don't want bad information to go to our populace. At least they honest. The United States and the West, they say, oh, we believe in the freedom of press, the free flow of information, but no one's a bigger threat than the flow of information and freedom of the press than the United States and its UK allies. Look how they cracked down on Julian Assange. And check this out. I had this story. I was going to bring this up as well. This is what's going on in our state. The secret police. Cops build a shadow surveillance machine in Minnesota after George Floyd murder. So we live under a massive surveillance, massive police state that retaliates against people that challenge them in their power. So not only if you protest against the state, they will go after you if you're not a useful idiot. If you're someone who's a useful idiot and you root on the side of capitalism, like, oh, I'm gonna protest regulations like the Tea Party did, they don't care. In fact, they will prop you up and promote your agenda, right? Because that's the will of the capitalists. But if you're actually a threat to their power, they will retaliate against you in this state. They will steal your shit via civil asset forfeiture. They go after and kill journalists, like they did in the Ukraine. In the Ukraine, they literally banned journalists. They banned communism in their symbols. And that is who the liberal Western media is cheering for. I also want to talk about this article because now, as RBN, we want to lead these hard conversations because there's a lot of people who are confused about imperialism. We talked about this last night on the International Leftist Coalition. Like, we're using the classical definition, as Caleb Maupin explained, as written by Lenin. Imperialism as a global economic order, being the highest form of late-stage capitalism. There is no bigger imperial core and machine than the NATO-US alliance. And if you guys don't believe me, look at the crackdown they are doing against anyone who dissents against their global regime. They can just shut down RT. People in Russia now, they can't even use Google Pay. Now people know why China created their own internet infrastructure. They have their own payment systems. People wonder, oh my God, why are they doing that? They're doing that because the US West economic capitalist system dominates. In Russia, because they come from history of being invaded by Napoleon centuries ago, who did horrific things to their people. And then you had the Nazis who invaded, who pushed to Moscow. So to me, like, if you're resisting the expansion of this global economic order known as NATO, that is designed to serve white supremacy and the colonial powers like Portugal in Africa, like destroying Libya, right? So as anti-imperialists who live in the imperial core, like Russian leftists and other Russians who oppose Putin, they are doing their thing. They're protesting Putin. But we live in the imperial core. Our job is to oppose NATO, the United States, who escalated this conflict in the first place in 2014 when they armed neo-Nazis. It is NATO who destabilized Africa. It's the United States who created AFRICOM, that who they led 9 different coups in Africa. Like, the NATO US imperial core deserves no support from Black or colonized people. That does not justify what Putin has done, because I am anti-war. So I propose solutions that does not lead to war at all costs. But being anti-imperialism is opposing the global economic capitalist order that has done nothing but trample on the global poor, and it operates as this mechanism that transfer funds from the global poor to the economic elite. That is what NATO has done. And people pretending that like Putin want to invade Ukraine, he wants demilitarize the region and stopping the expansion of NATO. which if you are anti-war, you should support. Let's end the fucking conflict. Meanwhile, the insane psychopaths in the West are calling for civilians in the Ukraine to arm themselves and fight against the Russian army. How does that, guys, if you're anti-war, if you're anti-imperialist, how does it make sense for you to advocate for civilians arming themselves and dying against the Russian military instead of just calling for the demilitarization of the area, which stops the people in the Donbass from being killed by the neo-Nazis? A lot of people don't talk about this. 14,000 of them was killed in eastern Ukraine, backed by the neo-Nazi groups that we are supporting. So you guys see how our channel, Jimmy, Jackson Hinkle, Caleb, we were one of the few people who are actually anti-imperialists who gets this right. You got people who say, oh, we're anti-war, we're anti-imperialist, so we believe in arming the civilians in Ukraine so we can expand NATO. How does that make sense? And now the same people who say they are for the freedom of the press, the anti-imperialists, quote unquote, they are now cheering for Russia today and any adversarial journalism that do not repeat state propaganda to be censored and deplatformed. Now, do you guys see why we had to start our YouTube channel? Because there are people on the left in the Majority Report, Matt Binder, all these people, they are cheering for the deplatforming of anti-war journalists because they have Putin derangement syndrome. There are people that are cheering for the expansion of NATO because they have Putin derangement syndrome. Check this article out, guys. And we are here to debunk propaganda. So we're gonna read the painful articles. You guys want to see this? And this is why I see progressives tweeting out. You had an article from The Intercept that say, don't be a tanky. I got to show you guys that one. Don't be a tanky. Don't get the Russia conflict wrong. The Russia-Ukraine conflict wrong. Now, this article said how Russia tests the American left. Oh, really now? Are we being tested? Now, I feel like the people who pretend they're anti-imperialist, the people who pretend they're anti-war, but they believe in arming Ukrainian citizens and sending people from other states to die in this war that they stand no chance of winning. They know they stand no chance of winning, but the Ukrainian president rather start World War III than just stop the expansion of NATO and stop arming neo-Nazis. That is the claim that Putin is making. And now, as someone who does not trust politicians, there's a part of me that acknowledges that, okay, maybe Putin is just saying he just wants that. But as it is right now, the facts that are on the table, Putin just wants to demilitarize the region. He wants a neutral Ukraine and stop the expansion of NATO. How is that worth people dying over? So how is the American left? How is us, the quote unquote tankies, how are we getting this issue wrong? Now let's dive into the article, and I want you guys, before Lee Camp gets here, I want you guys to understand the insane propaganda that we are about to get hit with. People are about to call us, got the same thing people went through during the Iraq War and War on Terror bullshit when we were smeared. I'm already getting people calling me Putin puppet, people calling people at RT, cheering them being deplatformed, calling Caleb Maupin, Jackson Hinkle, calling all these people Putin allies and puppets and tankies. It's coming, and I embrace it. I'm not running from this because I grew up during the rise of the United States Imperial Corps in response to the War on Terror. I've seen what happened to people who speak truth to power, and I'm more than happy to walk in that footstep. So you guys, I'm here to tell you guys the truth about this conflict, what they're not telling you. So I'm gonna debunk this shit in real time. And by the way, they're not even talking about the real left here. Let's explain this. So it said on February 26th, the Democratic Socialists of America issued a statement condemning Russia's invasion of Ukraine that also urged the U.S. to exit NATO. That's a good statement. That's a good statement. The left, and there's a vehicle. There's a video that we just released. Sorry, I'm getting excited, guys. I'm gonna calm down here. There is a video that we just released where I outlined the black radical leftist position on this crisis, on NATO. If you're a black or colonized person, you should be calling for the abolishment of NATO, not repeating their propaganda, not calling for Ukrainian citizens to die, just to stop Like, what are you guys asking for? Like, do you guys hear yourself? So what is the criticism that they have with that base take? So I actually do want to give DSA props. Like, we criticize DSA sometimes, but this is a good statement. Like, what can I say? It urged the U.S. to exit NATO and end the imperialist expansionism that set the stage for this conflict. That's a good statement by DSA. Good statement. Nothing else to say other than that. So now this article is mad that DSA actually got a really good take here. Now the suggestion that the U.S. look at this propaganda, and this is what people really believe. The suggestion that U.S. was somehow to blame for Putin's war of aggression was seized on by DSA critics across the ideological spectrum. Why would you criticize that statement? Why would you? I need to get to the chat. I can't see the chat in this view. When you say the United States and NATO started this conflict, that is factually true. They violated the Minsk Agreement. The United States armed neo-Nazis who openly brag about overthrowing a democratically elected government. So since the United States got involved in this coup and it was armed by Western states, you cannot call Ukraine a sovereign country. Period. And just like DSA said, and our position on this channel has been, I think there are other alternatives Putin may have taken as an anti-war activist. Right? But you have to get shit factually correct. It is not, the Ukraine has not been a sovereign country since 2014. Are we clear? I see you guys. I know you guys don't like DSA. Like, you gotta get credit when they got good take, right? They got good take. Like, I'm not like, anyway. You guys know what I'm saying. You guys know what I'm saying. But that's a good take. That's a good take. And that's what we're covering. Is the leftist position should be ending U.S. involvement in NATO. I'll go further than DSA. DSA said ending U.S. involvement in NATO. I would say abolish NATO, period. That's the difference. But there's nothing wrong with that, right? And we can go into our criticism. I see a lot of people in the chat is doing it of DSA, but hey, they get it right on this, right? So let's continue with the article. Because we're not here like this. The point of this segment is not to aim at DSA. I am aiming at the people who are falling for this bullshit. Like Destiny and some other fucking guy, I don't know his name. They had a debate with Jackson Hinkle and Haas, and there's like this whole segment on the left, the Majority Report, TYT, Destiny, left, where they're like pro NATO. Voss too, like pro NATO. And to be clear, guys, my gate is very low on what is leftism. If you support NATO and this expansion, you are an imperialist, a capitalist, therefore you're not a leftist. And once again, if I say you're not a leftist, I'm not saying you're a bad person. I'm just saying politically, factually speaking, you are not a leftist, right? They're just factually speaking. So to wrap up this first paragraph, very quickly the invasion became a test for the anti-war left, both at home and abroad. Where's the test? I just explained to you guys, Lee Camp going to join us here soon, but I just explained to you guys how our position is based and very correct. We are in opposition of NATO because it is NATO who expose and destroy the sovereignty of countries like in Africa. If you're a black or colonized person, you should not be supporting NATO. Russia is just asking for the demilitarization of the area because the neo-Nazis that we armed was launching attacks into Donbass in eastern Ukraine that killed 14,000 people. And no one on Breaking Points, Kyle Kalinske, Vosh, none of these NATO apologists who covered this story ever explained that part. And that is not saying that Putin is okay in his actions. But to say that Putin evaded and did this unprovoked, which they are criticizing DSA for saying, is factually untrue. You guys are allowing Putin derangement syndrome to destroy your brain so much that you guys are repeating factually untrue claims. And now do you guys know the consequences of this? The consequences of this is now that we're instead of us getting healthcare instead of funding that go out that uplifts our community and our neighborhoods, right? We're now sending money to Ukraine. We're sending weapons to Ukraine. We increase our military budgets. Germany is remilitarizing. Now we are living in the post COVID-19 hellhole is the expansion of this military and police state because people just love to repeat NATO propaganda uncritically. I'm gonna skip this paragraph. This paragraph is kind of a waste. They link to Bernie Sanders and AOC. You should be embarrassed to be linked to them now. Man, there's a lot of fluff in here. So I'll start off here because I don't want to read a lot of stupid shit on this article. DSA appears to be guilty mostly of repeating old arguments at a heated moment. The organization, so they talking about like the left position because they call for U.S. leaving NATO. They criticize U.S. involvement. So that's the argument they're arguing against here, right? They call for U.S. to leave NATO, viewing the transatlantic military alliance as a relic of the Cold War that has lost its purpose and largely serves to further American imperialist ambitions. The question is, where's the lie? Like, you see, they repeat this part like it's a criticism. They said, so they are saying that the United States left, we're hypocrites because we say the United States should leave NATO because they're this military lines that only serve to they serve imperialism. They serve to crush communism and anti-capitalism, right? That largely serves to further American imperialist ambitions. And then Biden called Russia's invasion unprovoked, and they said that's not true. It was provoked, but it did not justify anything close to what Russia did. Okay, that's I think that's the dude from DSA, Venice, who's making that argument. So there's nothing wrong with that take. There's nothing wrong with saying like, yo, I'm anti-war. I wish Russia didn't invade. But Biden is wrong when Biden and the liberal establishment said this is an unprovoked conflict. They are lying to you. That's just a factual lie. Like, how is that not? How do people accept that lie? Like, bro, this conflict been going on forever. They will tell you this. The neo-Nazis in Ukraine, when you talk to people in Ukraine, I'm gonna see if I can find this video I saw on Twitter. They will straight up tell you. Like, we've been fighting forever, bro. Like, what y'all talking about? We overthrew and banned communism in this country. So once again, if you're on the left and you're confused about this, God, I wish I had it saved. I'm trying to see if I can find it. Damn. I didn't save it. But they openly talk about how they was involved in overthrowing the democratically elected state because they didn't like the way it was going. They banned communism as well. I gotta do a whole segment on that. Like, so how you can be an anti-imperialist leftist but be confused on this issue? Man, I gotta go through my likes. I guess I should read some comments before Lee Camp. I need to spend some more time to debunk that article. That article is trash, and that's why I want to do more debunk stuff like that. Here, this is maybe I can find some sources on this. This is one of them. So this is a great tweet. Ukraine had 3 functioning communist parties until they was banned from elections after the 2014 coups. Communist symbology and memorials were also banned. This is the side that people like Voss, Destiny, and the imperialist leftists support. The same side, the neo-Nazi opposition that overthrew a democratically elected government, they started banning journalists who was reporting critically on their coup. Neo-Nazis were banning people. Now the West is banning people who debunk their nonsense. So how is the left being challenged? I am asking you guys. We got Lee Camp coming soon, so I'll read some chats. Maybe we can finish the rest of the. We can finish the article soon because we got Lee Camp maybe for like half an hour or so. I'm gonna stay a little bit longer and we can finish that article because I can debunk all this bullshit, guys. I promise you. You're gonna get hit with the same hysteria that we was hit with during the War on Terror. And BreadTube, they are loving this shit right now. Crystal Ball Breaking Points, all the people who have platforms that are 100 times bigger than ours, they are spreading misinformation and they are getting this shit wrong on purpose. All right, let's get some super chats for Lee get here. Thank you for the $5. Interview Vince Bevins, author of Jakarta Method. Yeah, man, my guest list is extremely backed up. I got a lot of guests. Like we got Margaret Kimberly coming on Monday. I've been wanting to get her on for a long time. I have a lot of guests I gotta get on the show, and then there are a lot of guests I want to get on, like Chris Hedges, for example. Many more, like Braca, Ajamu Braca. I want to get him on too. There's a lot of people who I want to get on, but we just don't got the clout yet. We just don't got the clout yet. So help us get to 15K. We're almost there. What are we at right now? We had 13.9 subscribers, and we wanted to hit 15,000 before our 1-year anniversary. So we gotta have one hell of a month. We gotta get 1,000 subscribers this month. We can do it. We can do it. But anyway, thank you for your super chat. Stuff like that support us. This support the $20 as well. Thank you, Tintin. Victory. These people will never debate me, man. Never. I told you guys before, and I love my boy Jackson. He killing the game, right? But the reason, like Sam Cedar would debate Jackson because Sam Cedar, his strategy was to tell him, "I don't care." His strategy was like, "I don't care that you support. I don't care that squad increase the police funding. I don't care." But that tactic doesn't work if you're yelling at a black person and you saying, "I don't care that the police get funded more." That doesn't work. It makes you look bad. But I don't. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to be a debate me, bro. Like I'd rather just educate and be influential that way, right? But we got Lee Camping House. Let me know if you're ready. Give me a thumbs up, Lee, if you are ready to go. Man, I'm a fan of the article that I was covering here very soon, maybe at the end of the stream. But I mentioned earlier the crackdown on media right now. Like I want to get Lee Camp on because we always have a fun time talking. Always great talking to this guy. He does a great job as a adversarial journalist. And it's nothing but a tragedy. Nothing but a tragedy because I've been watching Redacted Tonight for a long time. Like just losing that and seeing the establishment go after these people is just horrific. So I'm just honored that you made some time for us today, Lee. Welcome to Revolutionary Blackout. We stand in solidarity with you guys because I know you guys are going through a lot. Welcome to the show, Lee.
I'd like to take credit for making some time for you, but I got a lot of time all of a sudden.
Unfortunately,
yeah.
That is the case. Just for the people who are watching now, I just want to share Lee's tweet, and then you can chime in and give me your thoughts. Because this is what's going on if you guys haven't been catching up. And all the people like ourselves who've been warning about like the effects of the new xenophobic Russia gate that has been popping up. And this is the result of this. So this is what Lee said. My show Redacted Tonight brought you anti-war, anti-corporate comedy every week for 8 years. Today, it was ended in a matter of minutes by the U.S. government war machine. So show support at Patreon at Lee Camp. Support. We got your critical support these times. So I just want to toss it to you, Lee. What's your thoughts? And give us some more information. Anything you want to share about what's going on. Any way we can support you guys.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for all the work you do. It's been kind of incredible to see it all. Just full frontal kind of censorship attack. I mean, in the span of 1 week, I've lost my TV show of 8 years. I had my podcast of 12 years, Moment of Clarity, deleted from Spotify. And all of the Redacted Tonight YouTube videos are banned across Europe and the UK. And that's 1 week. So it's pretty insane. And it's clear, and it's cross, like I said, it's cross-platform. So it's kind of a clear and concerted effort to basically silence any voices that are adversarial to the U.S. war machine. There's been suppression for a long time. I've been heavily shadow banned and suppressed for a long time, but this is kind of another level. And in terms of other three things I listed, in terms of the my show, Redacted Tonight, ending, that's obviously not just my show. It's all of RT America has ceased production. Now, just the last show they produced, I believe, was Tuesday night, and State of the Union stuff, and then Wednesday, nothing. And they told us essentially nothing except they're ceasing production. Now, some in the mainstream media of the articles I've seen want to, almost, they don't use the term like, well, it's just a free market, but that's basically what they're saying. They're like, the free market didn't want RT America anymore because RT did lose. They lost their distributors, Dish TV or Direct TV or something, and Roku were two big ones that pulled out in the past week or two. But that can't be the case. They, like I said, they didn't tell us, so I'm not speaking from some kind of inside knowledge I have. But if they just lost a few distribution networks, they would keep going. They have plenty of money to go for several months. The fact that it was so sudden and so abrupt, like literally just Wednesday morning, they're like, no more programming ever again, makes me think, again, I didn't speak to anyone, I'm not giving away some kind of secret I know. It makes me think that probably the U.S. Justice Department came to them and said, you're done. It doesn't seem like there's any other explanation, because if it just had to do with a staffing difficulty or things like that, they probably would have cut back the number of shows. They probably would have said, hey, we need to take a hiatus, but we'll be back. Instead, it was just all over, goodbye. And, they were the people that worked there were torn up. Everybody's torn up. And I think people should realize that look, I get it. We're in the middle of this is a pretty tense and awful situation in Ukraine. Russia's invasion of Ukraine is terrible, even if they were forced into it by the NATO expansion, by all the peace agreements that were broken. Still, war is awful. And so it's a tense situation. However, RT America brought some of the only anti-war voices in all of televised media across the United States for years now. Hugely respected people like Chris Hedges and Jesse Ventura and so many others. And as Ben Swan, who's been a longtime contributor, said, tweeted out, he said, I've been with MSNBC, I've been with NBC, I think maybe CBS. So he's been with the mainstream networks, and he's also been at RT. And he said RT was without a doubt the network where I was given the most free reign to do and say what I wanted out of all those networks. There were plenty of people on the network that were right-wing. There were people on the network that were left-wing. There were people that came in at very different viewpoints. And still, because so many of those viewpoints are outside of the Overton window, outside of the allowable corporate talking points, that's what made those shows and my show dangerous. And that's why we stand here now, where I go from an 8-year televised comedy show that I created, co-founded, and produced or helped put together and wrote all my own words. We go from that to I have a Patreon.
That's so messed up, because this is such a giant blow. Like, you guys thought I was being dramatic earlier in the stream, but it's a giant loss to have people in an organization that was actually challenging U.S. imperialist talking points on the regular instead of falling for. I see a lot of people who will fall for head fakes, but a lot of people, RT and Redacted Tonight, was consistent in challenging these narratives, right? And this is the tweet from Ben Swan that you was mentioning. And I know you kind of mentioned earlier, but I want to read out for anyone who's listening. I worked as a contributor at RT America for several years. I also worked at CBS, Fox, and NBC affiliates. Always had the most journalistic freedom at RT. And let's face it, those who have called for censoring of journalists at RT will not stop there.
Yep.
So who's next?
Yeah, they just go down the line. I mean, they knock out one, and then they go for who's next. Who's next on the list that might be a little less adversarial. So they haven't been adversarial of the government talking points. So they haven't really had the attacks yet. But they just go down the list like dominoes and knock one off after another. And this was no free market choice. This was clearly RT America was dangerous to the corporate propaganda that we're fed. It put in enough doubts into people's heads as to whether that corporate propaganda was what was really happening on the ground, that it was dangerous. And if people are like, well, it was state-funded media or whatever, it's like, okay, so I guess you want to get rid of CBC, BBC, CGTN, PBS, NPR. Go down the list and knock off all of the networks that have any kind of state funding, and you wouldn't have any news left. And even the ones that claim to be state free, like CNN or Fox News. They're funded by the corporate weapons contractors that own the government anyway. So they are state talking, state mouthpieces.
Yeah, because I've been attempting to debunk this whole concept about state TV, because I straight out say it. We are the most propagandized country. Our media controlled by like 5-6 industries. Our media is literally an oligarchy who is paid off. Like, for example, let me give you guys an example. So you have Big Pharma that was advertised on MSNBC, for example, right? And then every MSNBC anchor just so happened to prefer Joe Biden over Bernie Sanders. Every MSNBC anchor just so happened to be like, I don't think Medicare for all is a good idea. When you poll the average American person, about 3 out of 4 people support Medicare for all, which includes 1 out of 3 Republicans. They don't talk about that. So 1 out of 3 Republicans support Medicare for all. That's how left this country is. But meanwhile, MSNBC can't find one anchor that supports Medicare for all. You guys think that's a coincidence? Then they was literally running anti-Medicare for all ads in the middle of their debate. They was debating whether we should have Medicare for all or this insane capitalist healthcare system we have now. And then in the middle of the debate, they had an ad that was like, yo, Medicare for all is horrible. And you guys think this is not state TV? Then these same people prop up Biden during his election. He gets elected, and then he dumps the public option.
Right. And that's another thing that my show, and I can't speak for every show on RT. We were very different. There were some shows that I thought were right wing, and I thought they were giving forth not great information. But in terms, I'll speak for my show. Like, we did exactly what you were talking about. Which was also, it wasn't just about war. Obviously, we gave the truth about what was going on in geopolitics, in foreign policy. But I did show after show after show on the harm of the big pharma industry, on the control of big pharma of our government, show after show on the prison industrial complex, the fact that we live in the largest prison state in the world with 22% of the world's prisoners and 4% of the world's population, and how Biden helped create that. I did stuff on all of these different topics that are not allowed on your mainstream media. The harm caused by police, the power and the breadth of big ag and how they're destroying our planet. Simply just doing regular reports on climate change is really not that common in your mainstream media. So it was so much more than just having to do with the military. Yes, I called out the military industry, talked about our 900 military bases around the world, our militaristic empire, but it was so much more than that. And so all of that gets lost. You don't just censor one little topic. You censor something that was bringing forth all of this information that is not allowed on your mainstream media.
And a lot of the free speech warriors on the right, they've been exposed as hypocrites. Once again, the same way they pretend, I believe in free speech. And they're liberals who we believe in this free liberal exchange of ideas. But then they're quick to ban the Sandinistas who are debunking U.S. talking points in Nicaragua, right? They're quick to ban people like RT and go after them because you just explain, not only just critiques of the military, it critiques of capitalism as a whole. And as we essentially have a corporate state. When people talk about fascism, the merger of corporation and state, you got big tech that essentially write policy now. You got big pharma that write public policy. You got the military industrial complex. You got Lloyd Austin, our defense secretary, who literally comes from Raytheon. How is not a corporate takeover of the state? But do they cover it like this in mainstream media outlets? The outlets are not being banned. They're not doing that. This is the value that people who are actually allowed to critique our society have, like your show and our Redacted Tonight and many other journalists and
it shows how spineless and how pathetic are all these corporate journalists. The fact that they won't stand up for the censoring of fellow journalists. You don't have to disagree. You don't have to agree with the point or the viewpoint of another journalist to understand that they should be free to speak that information, or it's going to end up coming after you later. But these journalists in our mainstream media are so bought off and so corporate. They are pieces of spineless shit. And so they don't stand up for anything. They don't stand up for Assange, even as he's getting persecuted. They don't stand up for Donziger. They don't stand up for any of the shit. They just want their pathetic corporate, state bullhorn job at, MSNBC or Fox News or CNN or whatever.
They want a monopoly on information, and the whole Julian Assange, Stephen Donziger, like those events was one of the biggest like examples of them being exposed. Like you had Jim Acosta who was like, "Oh, I oppose Trump, and Trump is mean to me, and this is why." This is an example of
his book was called "A Dangerous Time to Tell the Truth," and he couldn't talk about Assange.
Meanwhile, yeah, he was asked about Julian Assange. Like, no, not interested in that. Like these people are open hypocrites. And being left, and I define leftism as people who are anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist. Put yourself whatever box you're in, right? But someone who fits in that box is watching people virtue signal about being for freedom of exchange of ideas, freedom of the press. Oh, I stand for Ukrainian people because I'm anti-war. Meanwhile, Joe Biden is funding multiple genocides, cracking down on the Palestinian people. These contradictions drive me crazy, and those contradictions are something that you call out. That we try to do in our growing platform. We hit our 1-year anniversary next month, so
congrats.
so we try to expose this stuff because no one else is doing it. And I'm like, we wanted to have this conversation, but there's not a better time because I want you guys to support Lee Camp no matter where he goes, because I think we need to grow the independent left platform that debunks the mainstream media and actually can fight back against their domination of the control information, if that makes sense. So
yeah.
So the hypocrites, these people also say, "Oh, we believe in the freedom of ideas and exchange." They will ban journalists like you. They're currently banning Black authors right now as we speak because, oh my God, they write about critical race theory. Most of them just write about being Black. You have these same right wingers who they would ban Marxism. Like you can't learn about Marxism in schools, right? But then these same people are like, "Oh, I believe in the freedom of speech. I believe in the First Amendment." No, you don't. No, you don't. And we need media like that. Well, actually, that can actually call that out.
Yeah, and it's sad to see. I mean, really, to go back a little further, what this is the internet was kind of a bit of a Wild West for a while. And then it got faster, and so people could share information quicker and more easily. And so that didn't really get rolling until the 2008, 2010. And then what do you see? Well, you see protests popping off around the world. You see WikiLeaks. You see the Arab Spring. You see Occupy. You see the Bernie Sanders movement. All this stuff starts blowing up in the establishment's faces. And they have realized after those things, I'd say, Occupy and Bernie Sanders probably two of the biggest, that they needed to shut down the ability of these platforms to share reality, to share truth. And they have done it. Some of it's been done kind of quietly, like the shadow banning of my Facebook page, which used to be one of my biggest platforms. But, now I have 330,000 followers, but none of them are ever shown any of my posts. So it's basically a meaningless page. So that's been done over the past 4 years. And of course, no one's going to ever stand up harshly to defend that, to say these people shouldn't be shadow banned. Then they some of it they did it right in our faces. There was the deleting of 800 pages all in one day, including Free Thought Project and Police the Police and antiwar.com, and they also banned simultaneously the editors of those pages on Twitter, meaning this was, again, cross-platform, some sort of discussions of the higher ups at these platforms, when to do this, timing it together. And again, very, very little pushback from anybody in the mainstream, totally acceptable. And so slowly but surely, we're getting to a point where most of those that are still promoted, largely still promoted and allowed to grow with the algorithms allowing them to grow heavily and quickly, those are largely mainstream talking points or vapid nonsense. No one's suppressing the dog wearing a hat, but yeah.
Yeah, and while we have you 15 minutes, we have a few super chats I want to get to. I do want to ask you about your general thoughts, because this is what I originally asked you for, and then this whole bombshell hit us all this craziness. Yeah. But I want to get your general takes on like what's going on in Ukraine. I was reading this article before you got on. I may finish it here very soon, where they're challenging the left, and they try to get us on this gotcha. They're trying to use this got you on us, where if you provide any historical context, if you actually talk about when the conflict actually started, they label you as a Putin apologist. But I don't want to lead you in a certain direction. I just want to get your overall general thoughts on like the situation on the Ukraine. What's your thoughts on it, and what you think the left position should be?
Yeah, you're right that right now, if you give context to anything, then you're, you're a traitor or you're a Russia bot or whatever. Basically, you have to. The only way to virtue signal enough is to have no context and to basically believe that some sort of intelligence around these issues is anathema to the acceptable discussion. How dare you give any kind of context? Whereas, I can talk about why the FBI and the US government wanted to kill Martin Luther King. That doesn't mean I support them killing Martin Luther King. So giving context does not mean you support the shit. But what's going on right now is horrific. I'm not pro-war. I'm anti-war, and I'm opposed to bombing in Ukraine, just like I'm opposed to bombing in Syria and Iraq and Afghanistan and Libya and Yemen, et cetera, et cetera. And so, yeah, I'm absolutely opposed to it. But if you want to get into the context, and, on one of my videos, I read through a foreign policy research report that was from like 2 months ago or something, where they said they knew exactly this was going to happen. They knew what Putin viewed as security in Russia and breaching that security. They knew what was happening with NATO, that NATO was expanding and was pushing towards Ukraine. They knew they had created a US-backed coup in Ukraine, that, yes, the top of the government is not Nazis. Zelensky's not a Nazi, but there is a lot of Nazi power and was in that coup as well in 2014. And there's been fighting in the Donbass region ever since, killing thousands of people with these, Nazi battalions. And the Russia views this as a completely untenable, unacceptable security situation. That doesn't mean I'm cheering for Russia to bomb people. Like, that needs to be the understanding of anyone on the left, but anyone who even claims for a second to be anti-war. Because right now you have people of all stripes, right, middle, left, whatever, saying I am anti-war. I'm against this war, Russian aggression and everything. And it's like, really? Well, then where were you? Well, we were dropping tens of thousands of bombs every goddamn year for the past 20 years. The estimates now are 6 million people have been killed from our wars on terror over the past 20 years. 6 million people. And the number of the bombs that the Pentagon said they dropped in Obama's final year was 26,000 in that year. The first year of Trump was 40,000 bombs dropped. And all these people want to show up yesterday and say they're anti-war or they're opposed to bombing, or what about the civilians? And it's like, fuck you, man. If you weren't here when we were doing it, then shut up and don't pretend that you actually care about civilians.
Hey, Lee Camp, you had Barack Obama and George W. Bush that was like, I stand in solidarity with the citizens in Ukraine. I'm like, are you guys serious? Yeah. Are you guys serious?
And I'd say one of the most hidden factors of this is, what does the U.S. want right now? They want this to continue. They do not want a peace agreement. They do not want Russia and Ukraine to decide this is over tomorrow, because they like that Russia's getting bogged down into this. They like that it's hurting the Russian economy and they can justify all kinds of sanctions. But the U.S. wants this to continue, meaning the U.S. wants more death of civilians. That is what they're rooting for right now. So don't kid yourself that the U.S. government is trying to create peace, and that's why RT America was canceled and deleted, was because the U.S. government wants peace in Ukraine. The U.S. government wants this to continue.
And you guys want to know why Lee Camp is right on the money there? I want to show you guys this, and I want to get your reaction. This is why. As someone who's anti-war, I've been challenging the people who are pretending to be anti-war, who support arming citizens in the Ukraine. They're like, go fight and die in order for NATO to expand. Well, you guys, what is your end goal? That's what I'm not saying that you guys should concede because I'm pro-Putin. I am saying that because I want to prevent the loss of lives. And then if there are people that want to hold Putin accountable, especially on the Russian side that want to do that, you guys can do that. I'm not in opposition of you doing that. But as someone who lives in the imperial core, it's my job to be laser focused on the U.S. NATO and the UK and their role in this.
Yeah.
Are we clear? So I want to give a reaction to this, Lee, and then we can do some super chats here. Defense stock soar 69 billion on Russia's war. It doesn't prove what Lee was saying. This is what it's about. They don't care how many Ukrainians die. Business is good.
Yeah, business is good. You know, I'd say the defense stocks is kind of an added bonus to the real kind of gold ring that they were going for here, which is to just cut off Russia with sanctions, it cut off the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, which would have made Russia a lot of money, cutting off not just that pipeline, but other oil deals that Russia supplies most of Europe's oil. And the economic ramifications are going to ripple throughout Europe, throughout the U.S., and, you know, I'm anti-fossil fuel, but that doesn't mean I like to see people hurting and I like to see the poor struggling to fill up their cars. The economic ramifications are going to ripple through all this, and Russia and the U.S. are responsible for that. But again, the U.S. does not want this to end. They want to actually create propaganda that makes the peace process harder rather than easier. And yeah, like, the truth is the U.S. and Ukraine, which is largely going off of U.S. Suggestions or force or whatever, is they like I said, they don't want this to end, and they will continue down this road. As civilians die, they could throw Russia some kind of bone. I don't know exactly in the peace deals what Russia's asking for, but they could say something like Ukraine won't join NATO for 40 years, 60 years, won't even discuss it for the next 60 years or some shit like that. And it might be enough to get some sort of peace going, but the US doesn't want that.
Yeah, I've been following this, and I've been looking for changes and updates, right? But once again, as someone who opposes NATO, and I gave you guys the black radical position on this earlier this week. We explained it some more last night on the International Leftist Coalition. Especially if you're a black or colonized people, you should be in support of abolishing NATO, not expanding it. So as far as I know, I'm trying to find Caleb's report on this. What Putin wants is demilitarization in the region, which if you're anti-war, you should be for. Because before Russia invaded, you had neo-Nazis in the Ukraine that killed 14,000 people because of bombings. That is what allegedly, and once again, I give Putin no benefit of the doubt. So what the people who criticize Putin say, they say, well, Putin seems like he's just asking for demilitarization and the stopping of NATO, but he may go further. Okay, we deal with that then. Are you pro-peace or not? So as far as I know, and I'm looking for more information, I do not see what they're asking as unreasonable. And that's not me being pro-Putin. I am looking at the cost analysis, the amount of human suffering that will happen if this conflict continues versus the alternative. What's the alternative? Let's give Putin what he wants. What's the alternative? NATO stops expanding. The Nazis in the Ukraine don't have militarized weapons anymore. Do you guys hear what you guys asking? And if Putin, like a lot of neocons are saying, they're saying he's just saying this because he wants to go to war for some reason, right? If he is lying about that, we can address it then. They're assuming he's lying, so they said they want civilians to die because they think he's lying about his ass. Do you guys, Lee Cam, do you guys have any thoughts on that? And I've been trying to piece all this stuff together, right?
Yeah, well, then this goes back to wanting to have no context around this. They want to be able to yell, oh, Putin's Hitler, he just wants to steal countries. And that's only the reality if you cover up all of the context, everything that Russia has been asking for over the past, 8 years or whatever it is since 2014. If you just ignore all of the context, then you can walk around going, Putin, Hitler, just trying to steal countries. And you can proudly be ignorant. And that's kind of what they want. And that's why they get so upset. That's why they need to censor people who give any kind of context. Again, I don't endorse the actions, but I think understanding what's going on here is kind of fucking important right now. And you're called an apologist or a I don't know, a Russian if you dare have any context around this. I mean, one last thing is think about how you think. For those of you out there, think about how you think the U.S. government, the U.S. military would respond if Russia created a Russian-backed coup in Mexico, put in a Nazi-sympathetic government, was arming them, sending them missiles, sending them guns. And there'd been fighting on the border of the United States for 8 years, killing anyone who presents as American, who, speaks English. And that was done with the knowledge and the cooperation of Russia. On top of that, were talking about that Mexican Russian-backed government joining with 17 other countries that had a military alliance with Russia that encircled the United States. How do you think the U.S. would respond? I'm not saying I endorse it. I'm saying I don't think they'd respond very well.
Yeah, it's just common sense that say that everyone would respond this way. And as someone who I was in love with history before I became in love with current events. Like, how is it wrong for us just to bring up this context that I explained earlier in the stream? You had the Russian people who was brutalized by Napoleon. Then you had the Russian people who was brutalized by the Nazis, who reached all the way to Moscow, responsible for millions of deaths.
7 million Russians died during World War II. 27 million. 500,000 Americans died during World War II. Now, no deaths are okay, but there's a bit of a difference in that number. 27 million Russians died fighting World War II.
And do you guys really believe with millions of deaths, something that happened not that long ago? Like, a century is not that long ago, guys. It's been less than a century. So what do you guys think will happen, the trauma on a society having millions of people die?
Yeah.
So to me, as someone who can humanize other people, it makes sense that they don't want a hostile force to encircle their area, their neighbors. To me, that makes sense. I don't want, like Lee says, I don't condone the action, but to me, you got to understand their point of view. They've been encircled with hostile forces before, and historically, it did not go well for them. So now you understand why Putin and a lot of Russians are opposed to having NATO surrounding them. So I appreciate you joining us. I have a few super chats. We can go to some rapid fire super chats real quick. Thank you for the $20, Jennifer. Thanks for bringing Lee on to talk. Censorship is getting out of control. Keep fighting the good fight. Yeah, this is why we stand with Lee, and you guys got to support him no matter where you go. And all the other journalists who've been censored by this. Like, I heard that Tara Reid's podcast is been taken down. Like, I'm still trying to process all this shit happening.
Yeah, by any means necessary. Another excellent podcast. Everyone should look it up and follow it. But yeah, they were pulled down too.
Here we got another super chat from Megan. Thank you for the $4.99. Completely off topic. Lee, where do you stand on nuclear energy, handling storage, nuclear waste, recent chatter and fears of a nuclear holocaust? Do you have anything you want to add to that, Lee?
I wouldn't be surprised if the current news about what's going on at some of these nuclear power plants in Ukraine is exaggerated, because I don't think, like, Russian bombs, the way they've been firing them have been pretty precise, precision oriented. So it'd be odd for them to be shooting at nuclear power plants. But to get into a broader, but who the fuck knows? I could be wrong on that. But to get into a broader context of nuclear power, I'm still of the belief, I know we're facing climate change and we got to get off fossil fuels and everything else, but I'm still of the belief that you really can't make a nuclear power plant 100% safe. I mean, after Chernobyl, I think everyone thought like, oh, they're safer now. And then you have Fukushima. So every time we're told, oh, it's going to be safe, you end up with an entire area of the world that no one can go inside of for the next 10,000 years. Like, it's insane. So I don't think they've proven that this can really, truly be safe, especially when, I don't know, a war breaks out. So, yeah.
People are like, we got psychopaths flirting with nuclear war. And you guys know,
the calls for a no-fly zone over Ukraine is basically calls for nuclear war. Like, it is so idiotic, because if you have a no-fly zone, that means someone has to enforce the no-fly zone, which means you have NATO jets shooting down Russian jets, which, guess what, is like the step before nuclear war. It's the most idiotic thing I've ever heard.
You guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but last time I heard, the nuclear bombs that we have now is about 100 times stronger than what was dropped in Hiroshima.
I think more than that, yeah.
Like, once again, I'm not a nuclear expert, but this is something I heard, right?
Yeah, no, I think,
And I was told and I heard that the power that nuclear bombs have, just one bomb being dropped will cause something called nuclear winter. If you don't know what that is, a ton of nuclear waves get stuck in the atmosphere, which block rays from the sun from hitting the earth, which will drastically decrease temperatures on earth, which will lead to mass crop failure and massive famine.
Yep.
Nothing we can do to stop it.
Yeah.
But you guys are risking that because you want to expand NATO. You know how ridiculous that is?
And the U.S. and Russia have enough nukes to destroy the Earth like 9 or 10 times over, like destroy everything on the Earth 9 or 10 times over. And I think that's a great idea because, once you destroy the Earth 8 times over, what if you still feel like bombing some things? Maybe you want to go for that 9th time,
Yeah, I want to get to this last one, this last super chat, Lee, from Krania. And this is an important super chat, a great one to wrap the show up on. What do you plan to do, Lee?
Thanks. In terms of like my big, so I did a lot of things. I've been doing a lot of things. I have Redacted Tonight. That was the main show, but I also have Moment of Clarity, kind of more of a casual YouTube show. And then I have podcasts, Government Secrets, Common Censored, and Moment of Clarity. So everything will keep continuing except for Redacted Tonight. In terms of what I will do in place of my main show, I'm not sure yet. But if you want to support my work going forward, I've created a Patreon, patreon.com/Lee Camp. And I don't know yet whether it will be kind of a YouTube version of Redacted Tonight, or I'll try and find some studio to work with and make it look a little closer to the way it did on television. But hopefully something. Might be several months away, but if you can support my work at Patreon, that'd be pretty cool.
So I love when my chat fact checks me. I'm not a nuclear scientist. 10,000 times more powerful.
There you go.
That is so crazy. That is so crazy, guys. So if you're like, I just so happen to oppose NATO. Like, so to me, like if they concede, I'm like, sweet, Russia, NATO not spending. But even if you're pro NATO, if you're anti-war, take the fucking L. Just take the L. Just take the L. Like, how hard is that to take? I think it's worth taking the L than nuclear war, right, Lee? But anyway, I appreciate you joining us today, Lee. It's always fun to have this conversation. Always look forward to reading your work, so I'll definitely be supporting and following the next thing you release and what's coming forward. I want to give you the last word. Anything else you want to add? Any last thing you want to promote, or any final thoughts before you wrap up?
Yeah, I mean, those of us who are in the United States, who are Americans, like, your job right now is to stop America from creating death and destruction around the world. Like, that's I think you said laser focused earlier. That needs to be your laser focus. Bombs are dropping, right now in Yemen or in Palestine or in so many places. And even when we're not killing with bombs, we're killing tens of thousands with our economic sanctions. More are going to die in Afghanistan this year from our sanctions, from our economic war, than we're actually dying from our bombs in Afghanistan the year before. So the U.S. is perpetrating just death and destruction around the world when we need cooperation. See beyond your nation states. You're not your fucking nation. Be a human being and relate to other human beings. And really, it should be us versus the ruling elite. It absolutely should be a class war around this planet instead of nation wars. But yeah.
I vibe with that message so hard. You're not your nation. You're not your nation. We're a collective. We're a collective. I love that. So that's perfect way to end the show. Thank everyone for watching, and thank you for joining us, Lee Camp. I think we still have the show. Savvy has a show she's doing tonight for Revolutionary Blackout. Also, we'll be streaming tomorrow, and we also had the JV show on Sunday. So thank you guys for supporting. We upload every single day. If you enjoy this kind of content, please support us on Patreon. That's how we can continue to provide videos for you guys. And we are close. We are almost at 14,000 subscribers. I set a crazy goal the beginning of this year that I want to hit 15,000 subscribers before our 1 year anniversary, and we're so close, man. We just gotta get 1,000 more, and we usually get 1,000 subs every month. So please help us hit that goal, 15,000 subscribers before our 1 year anniversary, which is April 1st. So thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned because we've got great content coming to you guys from a left perspective all the time. SocialistMMA, sign out. Take care, guys.